Welcome to the Biohackers live show. My name is Teemu Arna and I'm your host tonight or today, wherever you are watching this. And today's show notes are going to be at biohack.to/Serge. So biohack.to/SERGE. Serge Faguet is our today's guest. So I'm going to run a little trailer here. So you get to know our guest in a moment. So Serge Faguet is a serial entrepreneur. He is behind companies such as Mireia, Ostrovok, and TokBox. He has raised venture funding from some of the top-tier venture capitalists. So he's a serious technology entrepreneur. He's also a diehard biohacker. He's very keen to have better energy and mood and focus and happiness and confidence, willpower, intelligence, health, and longevity, according to his terms, while he's running all these things that he loves to do. His hobby for the past 5 to 6 years has been to achieve the above mentioned attributes by hacking the body and mind through science. He has some really, really interesting and deep articles on Medium. You can check that's where he's blogging, and hackernoon.com. He has this famous article where he's describing how he spent 200,000 on biohacking and became calmer, thinner, more extroverted, healthier, and happier. That's super interesting. It's not just interesting, it's also controversial. So I guess part of that is why he calls him extreme biohacker. So let's run the little trailer and call in Serge for our next segment. Hey, Serge, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely fantastic to have you finally. So you've been around the world. I mean, we didn't have the opportunity to connect until now. You've been behind some pretty shaky connections. So what have you been up to for the last couple of weeks?
I'm one of those digital nomads. I live all over the world, part of the time in Silicon Valley, part of the time in Russia, part in Mexico on the beach in Tulum, and a little bit in Europe. So I am currently in Silicon Valley, just working on one of my new companies, plus, as always, focusing on my health, performance, and all of those other wonderful things that biohacking helps us get.
Absolutely. So how did you prepare yourself for today's interview?
I didn't. I always wing my interviews.
I mean, you must be so busy with all kinds of things. So what is your secret to being kind of always present and always able to perform at peak performance, whatever you get yourself into?
Well, so I think I've gotten into biohacking precisely for this reason, because I wanted to be able to be at peak performance a large part of the day and to feel good, to feel energetic, etc. And really, it's a number of things that I think some of those we all know, like sleeping really well at the same time every day and for plenty of time and tracking it, like eating well, not eating sugar, being relatively ketogenic. I take care of my mental health, so meditation, psychotherapy. I exercise, so high intensity interval training, various hip hinge exercises, and the like. And then I also invest quite heavily into researching my body and my biomarkers. So I have a medical team that helps me track everything that's going on, from my lipids to my hormones to things that could be impacting my mood and neurotransmitters. And then I take a large number of both supplements and prescription medications to help me get there. So let me give you a quick example. I track my thyroid hormones, and naturally they are kind of in the 35th percentile or so of the human population, which is a little lower than average, but not pathological and healthy. And at the same time, I raise those with synthetic thyroid hormones that are bioidentical to about the 75th percentile. And that generally has a very distinctive effect on my mood, my energy levels, and even the quality of my sleep. So that's just one of the things that I do. And really, my objective is to constantly keep finding new ways to get more performance out of myself in a sustainable long-term way that doesn't disrupt my health, but in fact enhances it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you're doing all these things to optimize your health and also to be able to perform better. And biohacking definitely, when it comes to its ethos, is all about optimizing your biology to its fullest potential. And my friend Siim Land, who is an Estonian biohacker, he was kind enough to make kind of a little overview of biohacking and how that relates to the current scene. So I'm going to run this little video from Siim that he made, and we're going to bring on Siim and have a very quick chat on the principles of biohacking before we venture deeper into what Serge really did in terms of getting himself up to the level where he is now. And he has all the data to prove it. And we're going to take a little look about on those things as well. So let's roll the little video here, and we're good to bring Siim online as well.
Modern medicine, a bunch of uncontrolled studies, partially biased results, business-driven incentives, a bucket full of prescribed pills, and a lot of sick people who aren't seeing any improvements in their health. The problem isn't lack of information or lack of technology. The problem is in misunderstanding some of the core principles of the human body. What's more is that everyone has their lifestyle factors, their genetic makeup, their heritage that all play a massive role in this. In the midst of this noise, there are some quote-unquote biohackers that take matters into their own hands and carry out a lot of N=1 experiments. These experiments include everything from going on low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diets that alter the body's metabolism and ending with taking different supplements that enhance the person's abilities. With the rise of technology and science, we can learn how the human body works. But more importantly, we can start to understand how our individual physiology functions and what we can do to optimize it. Everyone should be their own N=1 experiment, because one man's food is another man's poison. Biohacking is a continuous process of studying and optimizing not only your body, but also understanding the mind, the psyche, and how the individual's consciousness is enmeshed in a much larger communion we call humanity. Technology and biological optimization don't make us lesser of human beings. They reveal our true nature and help us to enhance our lives by improving our health, performance, and well-being. That's what biohacking is all about. Becoming better humans.
As a reminder to everyone online there watching as well, so both Serge Faguet, the extreme biohacker, as well as Siim Land, who is a real expert on ketogenic diets and biohacking in general, is going to be at the Biohacker Summit 2018 in Stockholm on 18th of May. And if any one of you has plans to join us for that conference, which is the top biohacking conference in Europe, we welcome you. And you can use the code Faguet, so Serge Faguet's last name, for 10% off on the tickets on that site. So take advantage of that, and you will be able to also hang around with Serge as well as Siim. And I'm gonna bring in Siim Land also into this conversation. So Siim, turn on your microphone. Are you good to go?
Hey, can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can. You have some
I'm
pretty
online.
cool glasses as well. Tell us, like, what got you into biohacking? You started pretty early on.
For me, it was kind of evolved from, like overall trying to optimize your performance. And yeah, usually if you're in the teens, then you simply want to get a six pack and build more muscle and stuff like that. But probably after I graduated from the military, then I kind of got into like the longevity and anti-aging kind of stuff. So kind of put things into perspective more and to optimize other aspects of my life in general, not just fitness.
So Serge, I mean, what was originally your interest into getting yourself upgraded?
I think it's a combination of things. The long-term strategic thing is I grew up on a lot of science fiction. I'm one of those people that wants to live forever and merge with the machines and upload into the cloud. In fact, I think of that as pretty much the only thing that matters in my life ultimately. And I was thinking about it, first of all, just from the perspective of, hey, we should be able to upgrade ourselves using technology. And the second component was really, I was working in quite a stressful environment as a technology entrepreneur. I was running Ostrovok, which is now the largest online travel company in Russia. We're going to do close to $1 billion in turnover this year. And it was very, very stressful. Just there was constant issues that I had to fight as a CEO, etc. I just wanted to perform better and to feel good in the evening and to study and to have energy for everything that I wanted to get done. And at some point, just very simple things like sleeping more helped me become much more focused and much more energetic. And then I started taking it from there and doing more and more analyses, fix my B vitamin metabolism that has to do with genetic mutation I have, that kind of thing. And every time I saw a little bit of an improvement, I said to myself, hey, the body is the single system that underlies everything that we do in life. Right? So everything, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, whether it's studying, whether it's just feeling good, it all depends on your body. So as someone with an engineering mindset, I have to say, if one system supports all other systems, then you want to optimize the fuck out of it.
That's for sure. Yeah, I also took the systems view. I started looking at biohacking as a way of seeing the body as a system, almost as a biological computer that can be put under the test, could be understood, could be optimized. What's your take, Seem, on these things? I mean, you are looking very closely on the biochemistry and how that part can be optimized.
Yeah, like I don't have like a degree in engineering or some sort of computer science or anything. I'm actually an anthropologist, so I have kind of a different viewpoint on this whole biohacking thing. I like to think of like biohacking is as a means towards optimizing the human body is like a way of changing or determining what it means to be human. Like human as a species is the only animal on the planet that has be able to control their own environment, and they can actually start to control their own physiology as well, to actually change the genetic makeup or change the genetic code in the sense through these kinds of different biohacks. So that's a huge privilege in this sense. And I also believe like it's actually one of, like Serge just said, that the only thing that actually matters would be uploading yourself into a cloud or something like that, or to at least reach a point where mankind or humanity has managed to at least take that much control over their evolution, where they at least change some of the aspects of what it means to be human and what it means to have like conscious experiences as a species.
To me, it seems that right now the pressure from our environment and the changes in our environment are changing much faster than our biology. So if you think about the amount of pollution and toxins that we have in our environment, if you think about the lifestyle changes that have happened in a few generations, we have gone basically from being physically active to sitting a lot in front of our computers, taking a car everywhere or elevator, etc. And instead of just really having struggle hunting for food, it's super easy now to go to the supermarket. You have constant supply of calories if you need them, and it seems that all of these are causing havoc on our biochemistry. What do you say, Serge?
I think it is more than just fixing the issues with our environment. I think the fundamental thing that we are facing here is essentially compound growth. So if I can make an investment today that is going to help me have 1% more energy throughout my lifetime, and I can then invest that 1% more energy into studying something new, or into further enhancements of my health, or into enhancements of my persuasion skills, etc., it seems that it is going to compound over time and grant significant advantages, especially since a lot of the resources that society has are competitive. So it's about relative ability to compete with other people. So to me, a lot of these things are truly about making investments today that will keep growing my capabilities over time. Maybe that's because I grew up on computer games, and I just remember that you're supposed to first build up your economy that keeps generating everything for you. And after that, over time, you can crush everyone else. So I think it's really about that, and not just fixing the environment, the environmental issues like pollution, although that is certainly a part of it.
Hmm. This brings to my mind like the question: are we noticing now a new division between people into different castes? Like, there used to be based on income, a division, based on social status, or based on race, a division of
Certainly.
people into castes. So do you see people who have access to these type of technologies that helps them to optimize their performance at the workplace and in life in general? Does that give an advantage? And is that kind of giving birth to a new kind of species that is going to take off from the rest of those people? So is this also slightly elitist even to think this way?
I mean, look, certainly the answer to your question is yes. And my perspective on this is that it's going to happen anyway. So I might as well take part of this and make sure that I can have influence in society in the future. And I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about normative judgments of whether it's elitist or not. But certainly this is going to happen, because human society is also very much geared towards a winner-take-all structure in terms of rewards and in terms of power. And technology, I think, generally consolidates that further and drives further inequality. And in that situation, people who have a small incremental advantage, especially one that they have developed over a significant period of time, will be able to gather more and more resources, reinvest more and more of that into their own health. And I think, looking at it from a kind of Silicon Valley technology CEO type person today, if I am competing, everything else being equal, with someone who doesn't sleep well, who doesn't have doctors that prescribe him modafinil and testosterone and all those things that give you not just energy, but the ability to persuade other people better. If I'm competing with that person, they're going to lose. And even more long-term, the people who don't do this over the decades, who don't compound all of those advantages that biohacking really gives, are going to fall behind. That is definitely going to happen. And the acceleration of technology, which is definitely happening, is going to make this process faster, and faster. Plus,
So
once we really get into that whole discussion of mind uploading and being able to buy a data center that part of your consciousness runs in, and doing all of that, that is going to only accelerate. And who's going to be in a position to buy data centers to run part of their brain? Well, it's certainly going to be people who will have the resources, the inclination, the knowledge, the motivation, and all of those things. Biohacking lays the foundation for today.
absolutely, it lays a foundation, and it lays a foundation for competition. I mean, competition and cooperation have been the two means through which human species have got things done. And what you're describing here is the competition aspect, and how it kind of enables some people to compete more than others. And definitely coming from Silicon Valley, that's a very competitive environment. So what does our anthropologist Seem say about what's being said so far?
Well, yeah, I have to agree with Sergio as well. Like, it's the harsh truth that there's gonna be an arms race in terms of people having access to these different biotech and supplements and things like that. But it is a very painful subject, because humans are, some people, they may not want to upgrade themselves as much as the others would, and it raises the question of, if the other people who aren't willing to upgrade themselves that much, they're going to be left behind in this sense, and they're indeed maybe develop this sort of a chasm or distinct castes, like Tim mentioned. So, but at the same time, it's also like it's all this kind of wanting or the willingness to upgrade ourselves or to evolve is kind of geared in our physiology and into our psyche as well. And like it's the natural process, I believe, of a species to want to grow and evolve and develop themselves in these different domains, as to not only ensure their survival, but to also cause less suffering, cure some of the other issues that we face as a species at the moment, like, I don't know, a lot of these diseases and aging itself.
I believe that biohacking is part of solving many of those problems that humanity faces right now. So thank you very much, Siim, for jumping in and throwing in your ideas about biohacking. We're going to continue with Serge. And if anyone is online listening to this, you're welcome to ask questions on our Facebook chat. Be generous. I already see there is a question from Thomas Axnes about sleep. I think we're gonna revisit that question once we get into Serge's sleep data. So I'm gonna pull out here. I'm just gonna take that away, and I'm gonna pull out some Serge's data. So here is Serge and his body weight changes as well as body fat changes. So since 2013, when he started measuring these things, he has come significantly down in 2017 in terms of body fat percentage. He's been able to increase his muscle mass and in comparison to his body mass. So you have done quite a transformation that has not been just temporary but sustainable. So has this only been about the gym, or is there something else going on here?
I think if we're talking specifically about body fat, there's been a number of things that really helped improve it. One is gym, and gym the right way, because there's really a lot of people spend time running on the treadmill for an hour. That doesn't actually help you with your body fat, because as everyone knows, you just burn, like half a piece of candy by running an hour. So what you do want to be doing in terms of exercise is, first of all, high intensity interval training. So read up about that online. And secondly, hip hinge exercise like deadlifts, squats, etc., because those activate the largest number of muscle cells, so they have the largest amount of metabolic benefit. A second component is sleep. Without good sleep, your hormonal systems are going to be out of whack, and you're not going to be able to lose fat. The third component is, of course, nutrition. And there, the question is not eating fewer calories. The idea that fat gain depends purely on the number of calories you eat and number of calories you consume is a very persistent myth, but it is false. So there's been a number of experiments where they fed people the same number of calories of fat, of protein, and of sugar to 3 different groups of people. And basically, people who eat fat lose fat. People who eat sugar significantly gain fat. You don't want to sugar. It's highly addictive, and this has probably been the hardest thing for me to consistently get rid of. But sugar has a lot of negative consequences, obviously, to your body fat through stimulating significant insulin response, but also sugar preferentially feeds cancer cells. It's called the Warburg hypothesis, and there's a number of other issues that sugar makes worse as well. Aside from that, there's been a number of medical interventions that helped me further lose body fat. One is metformin. So metformin is a drug for diabetics that is currently being explored by the FDA of the United States as an anti-aging drug. And it basically reduces the amount of glucose in your blood further, even if you already do not eat sugar. The other thing that has helped lose body fat is hormones. So I naturally have quite low IGF-1, low enough to a point that I would want to raise it, although lots of people want to actually reduce it because there's some trade-offs there. It's a complex subject, but you can take things like growth hormone, and if your IGF-1 is in fact quite low, then you will have gains to your body fat profile. I think these are the biggest issues, and I found that every time I made one of those changes, they didn't all come at the same time. There was like a step function in terms of my body fat. So I'll hit some kind of plateau, then cut out sugar, and that drops further. Then add metformin, that drops a little bit further. So that's as far as body fat. I think body fat is more than just an aesthetic thing in wanting to have a six-pack, but it's more that body fat is a symptom of insulin resistance and of metabolic issues. So you really do want to get it as low as you can.
I see. So let's see if you can see this. So on your blog post, you're talking about sleep hygiene, optimal nutrition, optimal exercise, mental health, and medical tests and supplements and drugs. You definitely are quite open when it comes to what you're getting into your system. So it can be also a pharmaceutical drug, and could be also natural dietary interventions. So then people might have a question. So how does this affect your body? I mean, what's the longevity markers? And here's from your article is some of your cardiac risk factors and all-cause mortality risks. And what you're basically saying here is there is a bunch of different causative agents when it comes to increased risk for death. And you've been able to kind of manage some of those risk factors. Is that right?
Essentially. So for me in general, aging is not a major consideration. The reason for that is that for after looking at the trends in aging patterns across the world, including the developed world, and looking especially at very high-income populations, I've concluded that even without significant technologies and without new technologies and without biohacking interventions, my expected lifespan is going to be around 110 years old. And if we think about it, so I was born in 1985. By the time it is 2095, there's going to be a very significant gain in biomedical technologies. In fact, it's going to happen much earlier than that. In fact, I think the Singularity is going to happen before then, and we'll all be able to upload and live forever in the cloud. So as far as I'm concerned, I already have immortality. So I don't really care about life extension. My primary purpose in all of this at this point is really performance optimization and making sure that I can perform at a really high level over the next 50 years or so, because I believe that is roughly the horizon over which a lot of future technologies and the Singularity are going to play out. I want to play a major part in that. So my objective is to build one of the platforms that are going to enable the Singularity. So I really invest into all of this in order to gain performance today and over the next 50 years. I don't care at all about whether my risk of Alzheimer's is managed 80 or 90 years from today, or as opposed to 60 years from today, because as far as I'm concerned, the path of technological progress makes that a complete non-issue. By the way, I'm somewhat surprised as to how much the biohacking community is focused on longevity specifically. I think that it is kind of like almost a waste of time if you understand the trends in exponential technology.
So what you are saying effectively here is that you believe that exponential technologies are going to advance at a trajectory that makes many of the issues that we are looking at today, like cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's disease, all of these things, we will find new and more advanced ways to treat and deal with them. So if that's the case, like, I mean, if you think of your age, like, how many years do you give to this? So if I'm 60, there's probably a little bit less time for getting into this escape trajectory in terms of longevity compared to someone like you and me who are kind of on our early 30s.
This is a very difficult question because obviously no one can really accurately forecast the specific dates of the development of future technologies. I think the gains will come constantly and incrementally. So it's not like a single step function. It is going to be constant gain that constantly staves off our aging and death. And then it will be a step function at some point where we replace our biological bodies with something else. Because I think I don't have an illusion that my current body, because of its architecture and because of a lot of factors, is going to survive longer than 150 years, maybe 180 years at best. But that's not even an issue because at some point we will either be able to replace and grow new bodies, or we're going to hopefully abandon this shitty monkey architecture altogether.
I see. So what you're saying is that we don't need our bodies necessarily, but we could transform into an architecture that is more sustainable. I mean, when I discuss with some of the cardiologists who really know about the anatomy of the human body, what they talk about is that there's a good reason why the human lifespan maximum is around 120 years, and it's partly is because of arterial stiffening as well as the aorta getting and stretching out like a rubber band. And there is no surgical method through which you could fix the heart from that kind of mechanical problem without causing scar tissue. And the scar tissue that could result from replacing your heart with a machine or with a organ transplant basically makes you lose some of the pressure in microveins, and that damages first your kidneys and your brain. And for that reason, I mean, if you take care of your cardiac health and you don't lose that pressure because of a bunch of stupid things that you do throughout your life, then you could potentially live to 120 years old. So what makes you say that we can live for 150 or 180, and how can we get there? Like, I believe that there's probably going to be some medical advancements, and looking at the rate of progress, probably we're going to get there. So right now, when I look at your data, what I see there is, for example, let's take over here. Here's your arterial thickness. So you've been definitely being able to kind of make sure that as you age, you've been taking care of your arterial health. You've been taking care of your cholesterol levels. They're all in green. Looking at the different particles, there's some work to do, but it's pretty good already. And looking at the inflammation and inflammatory biomarkers, so probably you are on a good trajectory to 120. So is this the kind of the idea of that you would be able to simulate your consciousness in a computer that kind of makes the body completely obsolete? Or what is it that you are kind of seeing yourself evolving into that makes you escape some of the physical limitations that we have?
Sure. So let's run through a little thought experiment. The brain is highly plastic. And we know this because people who lose their eyesight, they reallocate their visual cortex towards other senses, towards other work. Generally, the plasticity of the brain has been well established. The key technology that is really barring us from being able to upload and being truly, truly immortal is atomically precise manufacturing and brain-computer interfaces. So in order to build a functioning brain-computer interface that can read from your brain into a digital substrate and write back, you need to have sufficiently advanced nanotechnology that's going to be able to be constantly present at a large share of the neurons and synapses in your brain. There is a good amount of progress in that direction, and I don't see why that's not going to be feasible in the next 30 to 50 years. And once you have that, you can create one digital neuron, connect it to your brain, and your brain will utilize it if it feels that it's the same thing as a standard neuron. It will just use it in a plastic way. If you can connect one neuron, you can connect a billion. If you can connect a billion, you can connect a satellite uplink and a data center full of neurons. And because, let's keep in mind that the speed of data transmission in our brain is at peak about 120 meters per second. That's how fast the myelinated neurons in our brain pass through the electrical signals. Obviously, the speed of data transfer in electronics, also if your satellite uplink into your data center, is some fraction of the speed of light. So the latency of this additional component of your brain is going to be the same or lower than relative to the latency of the different parts of your brain today. So if you have data centers all over the world that your brain is connected to through a satellite uplink and that's gradually expanded, they're going to be as much a part of you and as much a part of a whole organism that has a single identity as your brain is today. And then obviously, if you keep, so the last bit of that is you keep expanding your neural capabilities with technology. Then you start adding sensors, obviously. You add a couple cameras, then you add a couple bodies. And then you end up with this body being 0.01% of the organism that you really are. And then I, for one, plan to store it in a museum so that it doesn't get damaged, because it's fragile and honestly, like, it's not that good. So.
Wow, that was quite an explanation. Also, explanation of potential ways through which we could get into collective consciousness, to get to what many people describe as that we are all connected, and this connectivity will just increase with our relationship with technology. So there's a question from one of our Facebook chats from Fran Ryder on clarification on the term singularity. So what does singularity mean to you?
Sure. So the singularity is a term that's been appropriated from physics, which basically means a point in the future where technology accelerates so fast that we cannot really make any forecasts and any even understanding of what humanity is going to be after that. The most popular conception of the singularity is when we upload our brains, or when artificial general intelligence comes around and probably kills us all. The reason it's called the singularity is that it's a horizon beyond which we cannot see, because the pace of technology, if we upload, and now our science is being done by these people who live in 100 data centers around the world and who are vastly more intelligent, the kind of technology and science that they will come up with, including to improve their own capabilities to come up with new technology, is going to accelerate so fast that it's pointless to even think about what's going to happen, because we're not smart enough to understand those issues today, and there's no way we can be.
Would you be ready to upload yourself into a computer simulation and let your body to not exist if you had the proof and the belief that this simulation is going to carry on just like you are?
I don't think there's a need to separate the physical and the digital. So I see it not as a simulation, but I see it really as a different substrate for the person that I am. So if you replicate your neurons, your memories, etc., in a digital substrate, and then you have additional physical bodies that you develop, you can run simulations in your mind, but you can also interact with the real world. So I think it's hard to really think past that point. Certainly, I will take advantage of the technology and I want to be one of the first people to take advantage of the technology. What happens after that is really not clear. I mean, I personally would like to use the immortality and superintelligence to really explore the universe and figure out how everything works, how galaxies work, and also how string theory works, and all of that. But it's pure speculation. I think that's why I'm making the purpose of my life to get to that point, and then we'll figure out what to do next.
You certainly are ready to use all the means and the methods, and that shows also in the work that you do. And that basically brings us to the research of the week that I'm gonna run right now. So let's play the next video and let's discuss about the research of the week. So the research of the week is about lithium, and Serge is known for using pharmaceutical drugs like metformin and lithium and a bunch of other things to enhance his performance. That also includes microdosing, a bunch of different things. But looking at lithium, we just found this article from Nature magazine, a study published in 2015 in Nature magazine that aimed to determine whether it is warranted to progress the development of epsilon, which is basically it's a pharmaceutical drug that mimics what lithium does in the body, and they were looking into it with 40 healthy participants with no history of any psychiatric disorder, 20 per group, in a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled parallel group design. And so the article name is Effect of the Putative Lithium Mimetic Epsilon on Brain, Myoinositol, Sleep, and Emotional Processing in Humans. The interesting thing about lithium is that it's known as an effective mood stabilizer for treatment of bipolar disorder, but it is toxic at only twice the therapeutic dose and has many undesirable side effects like kidney and thyroid damage, muscle weakness, and so on. So you have to be very careful if you're going to dose on these things, and that's why it's not, generally speaking, used or recommended, because the so-called LD50, which is the level at which it gets toxic, is quite low. But it seems to have quite the contrary beneficial effects at low doses. So they've been trying to mimic the very same means through different pharmaceutical interventions. So these participants were given this epsilon, which is basically a lithium mimetic, and a placebo 3 times a day. And what they found out that this pharmaceutical intervention affected emotional processes in those healthy participants in a positive way. And it also shows that this intervention is something that could be described as an antioxidant. It inhibits several of the pro-inflammatory enzymes, and like lithium is a neuroprotectant, so it can protect from basically brain damage. And so my question to you, Serge, is about using these things. I mean, it's kind of like playing with fire. I mean, you're playing with things that have quite close effective dose versus toxicity. So if you look at the dose response curve, and seem to have, based on studies, pretty significant benefits if you use them correctly. So what makes you go into this?
Let's talk about lithium. So lithium is taken by bipolar disorder patients in the amount of about 1,000, 1,500 milligrams, around that kind of dose. we get in water on a daily basis about 2 milligrams, 3 milligrams per day, depending on the area where you live. I personally take 100 to 150 milligrams of lithium per day, which has which has like very, very barely noticeable effects on mood stabilization and just being more stress resilient and etc. And appears to have a number of the neuroprotective properties that you have described. So I'm taking lithium in a dose which is about 10 times less than what they have been giving millions of patients over decades without significant problems, and then the toxicity is another 2x or something from that. So I think that as far as biohacking purposes, lithium really is very, very safe, because taking 100 milligrams of lithium when the toxic dose is somewhere around 2,000, 3,000 milligrams is, it is quite safe. And I don't think for intelligence enhancement or for neuroprotective purposes, you would want to take a full bipolar type dose of lithium, because that is going to severely depress your central nervous system. In fact, when I was speaking with my psychotherapist, who's a neurobiologist from Stanford, and with my main doctor, Peter Attia, who's also quite well known in the biohacking community.
Yeah, and a lot of longevity research as well.
Yeah, they've when we were brainstorming on what are the things that could conceivably have a material impact on human intelligence. There were really only two safe interventions, and it was lithium in around this dosage and modafinil in the dosage of about 200 milligrams per day. So I don't think I'm playing with fire. A lot of people get freaked out by, oh, you're taking so many of these drugs, or you're taking so many of these different supplements. But actually, we are very conservative in the dosages that we take, and observing for side effects, and integrating it carefully, watching for allergic reactions, etc. If you're smart, you can do this quite well.
I see. Let's take a look at your kidney values and liver values and so on to better understand what kind of the result is of taking all these supplements. I mean, there's many handfuls that you get yourself into on a daily basis. So looking at the renal function, looking at the kidney function, what we see here is pretty good markers actually. So your creatinine levels is around 1, and your cystatin C, which based on my knowledge is even more accurate marker on kidney function, is 0.68. And so there's on this same chart you can see also some improvements that could be done in terms of heart. The mitochondrial CoQ10. But what kind of results have you seen in terms of like taking a bunch of supplements? Have you seen your liver values, or kidney values, or cardiac values to be affected by these?
Actually, they've improved over time. So I post from time to time I post updates to those, and my eGFR, which is a very popular measure for kidney function, it's actually in the top 3% of my own age group, despite all of these 70 pills I take every day. My ALT and AST, these are liver function markers, right now are around 13, 15, which is very, very, very good. So it seems that, doing all of this in a smart way, and also taking things that support the function of your liver and your kidneys, and just taking care of them quite well, is quite doable. So I don't really see, it's doable. So you just have to monitor this, understand your body, keep doing this for a long time, and you can do it.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the risk factors for all-cause mortality, there is all these things that you can get yourself into in terms of acute infections and trauma. But then when we look at any kind of chronic illness, behind that there seems to be inflammation, there seems to be some organ failures also that often are actually related to basically mistreatment with medications. But that could be also with supplements. I mean, many supplements, especially herbal supplements, are known to affect the kidneys and liver. So you're basically monitoring these markers, and you are taking care of that you're not damaging yourself. Do you remember, by the way, what your EGFR is, like the percentage? Do you have out of memory any remembrance?
Well, it was in that slide that you just gave. It just says over 150, which is significantly better. Yeah, you can see it there in the previous results.
That's very
slide.
good.
You know, they're saying that optimal is over 90, and this is significantly greater. So I think in one of my new articles, I posted a chart where, and they don't really even have data on people whose EGFR is that high, because, you know, most people who come in to take blood tests are people who have problems, right?
Yeah. And I can tell that my EGFR, because of all the biohacking, all the supplements that I have taken, have actually improved from around 68% to around 100. So there's something that I'm also doing right for the last 4 years. I've been basically systematically being able to improve that value. And part of that is also probably because of detoxification of a bunch of things. And looking at your detoxification, you've been able to reduce your blood mercury levels quite significantly. I think it's 0.01, which is kind of considered as the maximum level after which you should be concerned a little bit on that. So you were a bit above of that. You've been able to fix that in a year and then even get that further down. And looking at your body and how it gets basically influenced by a bunch of xenoestrogens and a bunch of environmental toxins like benzene and all these things. So you probably are avoiding people who are smoking cigarettes and going to nightclubs and all these places where you get yourself influenced to these things, or maybe driving a motorcycle. So what are kind of the practical strategies that you take care of to make sure that you are not like overloading yourself in addition to medication with a bunch of crap coming from your environment?
There's not very many things you can do about environmental toxins. There's some. There's obviously, you know, if the best thing to do is to live in, I don't know, Sardinia or someplace like that, but mostly it's really hard to do that given other priorities in life. So I try to make sure I do several basic things. Don't drink hot liquids out of plastic containers. Don't smoke. Don't be next to people who smoke. And by the way, so the values that you were just showing, I tested those once after smoking some weed, and you know it was like off the charts bad. So you know, all of that stuff is highly toxic, and you don't want to have that. You can also test the air at home, have better ventilation in places where you are. I don't know. Apparently, sauna and things like that helps get detoxified to some extent. Although I don't know enough, but I'm pretty sure that the Finnish people know much more about the sauna than I do.
Well, the Russians also know with banja.
That's
you know,
true.
That's for sure. I mean, you guys have a pretty awesome culture as well when it comes to bathing.
I don't focus too much on the whole detox aspect of things. I mean, I try not to stand next to things that stink of whatever paint or benzene, etc. So it's just a matter of you know, trying to make better choices, trying to live in slightly better places. I really wish someone developed some kind of nasal filter that would work well and not look like I'm about to rob a bank. I would wear it all the time in cities, but there's nothing out there so far. So,
Yeah, I actually noticed a device that you can use in an airplane that increases the amount. Oh, it's kind of like a mask that you put on. I can probably throw that into the show notes once I dig it up. But basically, a
yeah,
mask that you put on to increase the humidity, and that could potentially also filter out the air in the cabin. And it's notoriously known that certain airplanes, I mean, they circulate a bunch of exhaust fumes from the burned out petrol
right.
back
But
into the cabin.
the challenge with these things is just that it's these things look so weird. I would want to wear it on a regular basis when I'm in a polluted city, but walking down the street in something that looks like Bane's respirator from Batman, I mean, I don't particularly want to do that. Although I'm pretty sure if I were living in, let's say, Beijing, I would say, fuck what I want to do. I'm just gonna wear Bane's respirator in order to save myself.
Yeah, let's take a look at your basically your insurance that you personally subscribe to, which is your supplement stack. I assume that here on the green you have the stuff that has a lot of studies that these are actually pretty good things to take, and the more the more light colored ones are the things that there's not necessarily that much studies and results for. Is that right? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's essentially the case. I asked my doctor's, Peter Attia's team. He has a team of researchers that help him go through studies and review the existing data. So I asked them to take a look at all the compounds that I have been taking. And essentially, the green ones are the ones that have a good basis and should definitely be taken. The light green ones are, if you don't care about the money and the organization, take them. And then the gray ones are probably placebo or not enough data that they found on them. I take them anyway because there's not much downside, and I kind of see. First of all, I think the placebo effect is a great effect because you get value out of nothing. You can take, something that doesn't have any effect whatsoever, but if you believe that it does, it's going to make your life somewhat better. The placebo effect is a very
Yeah,
well
yeah,
replicated
absolutely.
effect in science.
Yeah,
So a lot of people say, oh, some of the stuff you take is placebo. Is like, yes, that's part of the point. That's fine.
yeah. I mean, probably having a medical team working on you and having all this data and showing the results probably also adds on the placebo effect. So
Exactly.
looking at this stack, what kind of I see immediately, there's a bunch of things that seem to help mitochondrial function. So when it comes to your ability to crank out ATP and energy throughout the day, there is all these things that support those pathways. There's also a bunch of things that support uh, kind of ways to deal with hormones and balance out hormones, as well as things that help you to balance the gut. So probiotics, prebiotics, and all those things. So this seems like a pretty good stack here, and you're throwing a lot of pills down your throat, so it doesn't show in your kidneys or your liver. So there is no argument that you can't take this much of supplements each day, but definitely you should follow on your liver values because everyone is unique. Everyone responds slightly differently on these
The
things.
only thing I noticed out of all these supplements is that I developed an allergy to, like a sensitivity, not allergy, but sensitivity to gelatin
Mm.
because of all the capsules. So that was
Ah.
pretty funny.
Oh,
But some of these
gelatin issues,
supplements, they
guys.
even help. So, for example, milk thistle is a supplement that is well demonstrated to support liver function. So some of these supplements are helping that as well.
Yeah, yeah, milk thistle is great. I also use that occasionally. Looking at sleep, you've been optimizing your sleep quality. You have quite a lot of deep sleep that you're getting, and I guess your data also showed pretty good like averages for REM sleep. So, what's the secret in your case that has kind of helped you to improve your sleep quality? So, your onset to sleep as well as the depth of sleep.
There's several things. Well, first of all, I highly recommend everyone read a book called Why We Sleep. It's just a new book that came out. It was authored by the head of the Berkeley Sleep Lab. It's an amazing book, amazing book. One of the best just books that I've read, and a lot of sleep-related information, experiments from the cutting edge. But the key things that help sleep are, the biggest one is sleeping at the same time every day, or roughly at the same time, and not shifting by very much. So if you think about it, as you dig in, and this is why you should read the book, when you shift the times of your sleep, you change your adenosine sleep pressure cycle and your circadian rhythm sleep cycle go out of sync. And as a result, you lose some of the stages of sleep significantly. So sleep is a very active state. It's not really actually resting. It's something where your body is actively maintaining, repairing, cleaning lots of the different machinery, cellular machinery in your body. So you want to make sure that you do this maintenance very, very well. So I would prioritize it. The second bit is just sleeping lots. I think one has to actually sleep at least 7.5 hours a day, which you really sleep. And what that means is that you spend in bed 8.5 hours. I try to spend more than that. I try to hit 8 hours of sleep, which is 8 hours, 45 minutes of time in bed. I try to wear orange glasses like the ones that you're wearing. I obviously track with Aura. I love Aura. I saw that your friend, I forgot his name, that he had an Aura
Simland,
as well. So what else? And aside from that, sleep is one of those things that's both a cause and the consequence of all the other things that I'm spending time and effort on. So think about it this way. If you sleep well, you're going to have the discipline to exercise and to eat well, and you're going to have better mental health. You will be less frustrated. And if you exercise and you take care of your mental health, you will sleep better as well. So all of these things, they really have to go together. They have to, they have to go together. And you have to make sure that sleep is a very, very significant priority in your life. If you cut sleep in order to do something, like because you don't have time to do whatever homework or work or something, count how much time you spend procrastinating per day because you haven't slept well. And then consider maybe you should just, instead of procrastinating for an hour, you should spend that hour sleeping and you won't procrastinate. So pretty obvious to me.
That's a lot of good advice. So when you get more tired, it's more easy that you get into procrastination mode where you browse your phone for no apparent reason, and kind of following your sleep data coming from devices like the Oura Ring. So if we get the camera to show this ring. So I have the new Oura Ring here. That's coming out just now. It's going to be sent out to the pre-orders, and Aura sent me this for review, and I can say that the new app and the new ring is fantastic. And this, if anyone wants to get their hands on this, you can go to auraring.com and you can use the code BLS, so Biohackers Live Show BLS. That gives you a $75 discount on that.
Thank you for telling me that you already got the new ring, because I think I sold like 500 of their rings and I'm still waiting for mine. So I'm going to shake the guys down for it right now.
Yeah, I guess I got the advantage of being in the country where they build the prototypes, and the actual kind of shipping and the actual set of rings are from the manufacturing are coming out just now, and they're starting shipping them to international, to everyone. So I can assure you, Serge, that it's awesome and you will get your hands on it. Latest at the Biohacker Summit, where the guys are also exhibiting, Aura is coming to Biohacker Summit. Serge is going to be there. I'm going to be there. Simland is going to be there. Go to biohackersummit.com, check out the Stockholm event. Code Faguet gives you 10% off on the tickets. if you can't come in person, there's also a live stream that you can watch. You can follow us live as well. And now, where I want to get ourselves into is kind of closer to the ending of the show. There's still one segment that I want to get us into, which is our app of the week, which is basically how you can look at your biomarkers more in detail. So yeah, by the way, the new Aura app, I'm going to show it just quickly for anyone who's interested. So you can see your readiness index and your sleep, and you can dive deeper into sleep, for example, and you can see the sleep components. So I got like an hour of deep sleep and over 4 hours of REM sleep. That looks pretty good. My resting heart rate was down to 47 last night. And looking at my readiness index, I've been traveling all week. I was giving a TEDx talk in London, and that hurt some of my readiness. I'm recovering now. I'm back in business, and my heart rate variability is up to the hundreds. So I'm feeling pretty good now. Looking at the lab results, so there is this app called Wellness FX. So if you get your blood work done and you want to analyze them, you want to upload them to your phone, you can actually sign up for free at Wellness FX. And looking at the kidney function that I mentioned earlier, so here is some of my kidney results, and looking at the eGFR. So I've been, as you can see, I've been able to improve that over a period of time. And this is a pretty nice app, because if you do your lab test wherever you do it in the world, if you're in the US, you can use Wellness FX. If you are somewhere else, you can just go to wellnessfx.com. You can upload your values. Sometimes you need to use a conversion to get the results in the right US kind of way. And then you can look at them on your phone. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you don't know what these lab results or markers mean, so if you do a lot of these tests on your own and you're still kind of struggling what eGFR means, there's this app called LabGear. And LabGear enables you to look at the different biomarkers. So if you look at something like, let's look at kidneys. And let's say cystatin C that I mentioned earlier is a more accurate marker for kidney function. And you want to learn more about it, you can use this app to kind of look at some of the analysis that they have, as well as look into the research articles in PubMed, and you can look at the Wikipedia page, and you can look at a bunch of other things for additional resources. So if you want to go into, let's say, looking at your cardiovascular markers, you want to look at, let's see, blood values. Let's go here. Yeah, vitamin B12, for example, or your transferrin values. So these kind of apps are pretty useful for it. I found LabGear to be the easiest. There's also something called Lab Tests Plus, and Lab Tests Plus it looks pretty similar. So you can look at cardiac tests. So let's look at cardiac tests. We can look at CRP or creatine kinase that kind of shows if there's any kind of recent damage that also actually increases with exercise. So you can look at the results, what they're telling about these lab values here. So Serge, what do you use to analyze your own lab results? How do you keep track of them? I mean, kind of do you combine them in a certain way, or?
I mostly just use Excel plus my doctor has a standardized set of tests that he runs by now, and I go through it with him. I think, I already have a very good understanding of where my different markers are. So by this point, it's really about optimizing a specific set.
Yeah, yeah. Some biohackers out there, when it comes to sleep, for example, they say that you can sleep less once you start biohacking and keeping your inflammation down. I guess Dave is one of those who has promoted the idea that you can use modafinil and just go on and kick ass and all that stuff. Have you noticed some changes in your markers as you run your busy lifestyle if you are not sleeping enough?
Not in the markers because we don't really test frequently enough. Right now the barrier to do all this 100, 150, 200 blood tests is high because you have to actually go somewhere, call a phlebotomist. You cannot do this more than a couple times a month. It costs a bunch of money and it's not that useful. So I look forward to when we're going to be able to test analytes in real time in a non-invasive way, kind of like what Dexcom is doing for continuous glucose monitoring. But to answer your question, on sleep, I just subjectively feel worse if I don't sleep enough. So I really try to make it a high priority. Plus, there's just a lot of evidence that sleep, if you don't sleep, that kind of has damage which accumulates over time and really makes your body and your mind perform worse. So why would I shortchange on that? So really, the only times my sleep goes bad is if I travel transatlantic, or if at some point I occasionally do an all-night party with close friends. So
absolutely, yeah. Wonderful. So I think I'm going to let you go and do your work so that you don't lose your sleep tonight. And so for me also to be able to go to sleep earlier, so it's around 10 o'clock here. Thank you very much so far. And we're going to continue the discussion at Biohacker Summit in Stockholm. So Serge is going to be an opening keynote there. It's going to be 18th of May. You can use the code Faguet for 10% off. There's also a live stream that you can use the code for. You get the recording package. You get everything that Serge dives deeper into, as well as what Siim Land is up to, plus 27 other keynotes in optimal human performance, health and well-being and fitness. So check it out. And so Serge, where can people find more information about you?
So I blog on Medium. I write very occasionally, but my blog posts are like 35 minutes English. So you've gone over one of them, which was about biohacking. I just wrote another one a couple months ago, which goes very deeply into enhancement of intelligence. So just search for my name and you'll find my blog on Medium, and you can read it. Let me know what you think. So yeah, and I look forward to seeing people at this event.
Awesome. Thank you, Serge.
Cool.
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for jumping in. So with that, check out Serge Faguet, Extreme Biohacker. The show notes you can find at biohack.to/Serge, and you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube, Biohacker Summit and Biohacker's Handbook. Check it out. We're also on Instagram for Biohacker Summit, and we're going to be posting a bunch of interviews as we go forward. And with that, I thank you all for jumping into the show, and I wish you a healthy, optimized rest of the week. I know it's Labor's Day in some parts of the world. Some have had just King's Day. You're probably recovering from a bunch of things, and you're ready for gearing for the spring. And I'm definitely ready for it. So with that, I wish you all a super awesome, healthy next chapter of your life. Hopefully you got something out of this interview with Serge Faguet.